Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wednesday Build. This is episode 1.16, and today we'll be discussing the topic, When the Business Comes Before the Plan, Build the Model Around It, featuring the role of your desired lifestyle when building a business. Before we start, I just wanted to introduce myself and tell you where I am right now. So you might be hearing a little bit of music in the background, and it'll be a little bit noisier than normal because I'm currently in Berlin in a hostel, recording this from the cafeteria. And I am in Berlin for the No Code Club meetup with Miriam Hakobian of Softer and the CEO of Make and a couple of other fun people. So I thought it'd be fun to share a little cultural moment with everyone. So one of the first things that I noticed when I got to Berlin is that the crosswalk little figure is this cute little guy. And it turns out that he is a trademark of Berlin, and his name is Ampelman, and he's amazing. And look how fun these are. So I was able to get some little earrings of his and a little keychain. So I'm having a blast. I'm really excited to be here for this event. The reason I'm here, as I mentioned, is it's going to be happening today at 7 p.m. And it is an event where I'm going to be able to meet up with these different people who are interested in no-code technology and how no-code is revolutionizing the way that we're able to have people who are not sort of trained in coding languages, building applications from scratch, either by themselves or with their teams, and how that is really making it to where we can push forward a lot of different sectors and bring more creators into the sectors, such as legal and others. So in my particular realm, I focus specifically on legal technology, but I personally also love to create in a lot of different realms outside of legal as well. And for me, the joy and the fun of these different tools is the creation and the building part, because it's a lot of creative problem solving and this ability to just customize things the way that you want them to be and to solve any specific problems that you're trying to aim to solve. So as I mentioned, my name is Brittany Hernandez, and you can call me the B emoji or B, as well as Peanut or Brittle, as my dad and my uncle like to call me. I'm from San Diego, California, but I live in London now. I'm just currently in Berlin for this event, and I'll be staying till Saturday, which is really exciting. I've never been here to Germany at all before, so it'll be nice to kind of get to meet some new people from this space that live in this area. I am a veteran of the United States Coast Guard. So I served for 4 years on active duty as a boatswain's mate second class petty officer in Puerto Rico and Alaska, which was an amazing experience. And we're going to kind of tie in some of my experience in the background into our conversation today around lifestyle, what you want your life to look like, and how that shapes your business when you're kind of starting a side hustle, or you're going to have your full business be something that you've created from the ground up. I'm also a lawyer, so I practice intellectual property and entertainment law out of California. And sort of after that, I had some money left over for school from the GI Bill from serving in the Coast Guard. So I went on to get a master's degree with distinction in international film business, which really kind of made it to where I had this opportunity to think about how we can use technology to solve problems of other humans. And we can do that in a creative way with tech like no-code software, for example. From that, I was able to meet one of the co-founders of Vala, and I ended up working with her and her co-founder, Danae, as the business development executive and partner engagement executive for Vala for 6 months. And then after that, I was trying to decide what I was going to do. And then a lot of our conversation today is going to be around that second half of last year, and then earlier this year, which focused on when I became a Gavel expert, which is how I was around this no-code, low-code developer. And some people call this style like sort of makers, or you can call it like a Gavel expert, or you can call it a no-code developer. It depends on, because it depends on who you ask or who you're talking to. But personally, I think of it as you're developing tech, applications and workflows using the tools that are no code. And what I found is people are generally, because it can take a while to kind of really dig into all of the deep different facets of a particular tool and how they interact with other tools, you kind of can end up being really an expert of certain systems. So you can really dive deep into Gavel, for example, or really dive deep into Airtable or Softer, and then a couple of other surrounding technologies as well that will help trigger the different actions or do the different it just depends on what you're trying to do. But what I mean is to say is that it doesn't mean that I know how to do every single platform out there. You could probably have it to where I have the skills to pick up any of the tools, but it makes it to where I want to get really deeply specialized in particular platforms so that I can really advise people on that and create with those tools and then see how they interact with others. I then was able to become the global ambassador to law schools for Gavel, formerly Documate, which is one of my favorite roles in that I get to work with law students and help really open them up to the fact that there's other ways you can use your law degree as well as your license as an attorney. And there's different ways that you can package your services these days to make sure that you're delivering high amounts of value to your clients while at the same time being able to learn how to scale your services as a lawyer. I'm also the program director and senior instructor of the Law Students in Legal Tech Access to Justice Fellowship, which is going on right now. And we're 1 week away from kicking off our hackathon competition for our fellows who have completed the certification course. So they have 1 more week to finish the certification course before we go into them developing their own apps and workflows using Gavel to address access to justice issues with software as sort of their legal app marketplace. And then the actual content within that is the different workflows that they've created. I'm also the founder, course creator, and senior instructor of Command Academy, which is another piece that we'll go into more today, which has Gavel certification courses and certification course on Go Full Page, as well as instruction in software and Airtable and more. I'm also the creator and host of the Lightning Talks for Legal Innovators series in partnership with Gavel, as well as this show, the Wednesday Build. So that is the Lightning Talks for Legal Innovators is a show that we run once a month on the last Thursday of every month. So the next one is going to be a week from tomorrow. And it's going to be John Jelenko, who is the head of sales of Gavel, who's going to go into how to survive in the new legal market, where it's talking about how you can market and create and market legal products in this kind of shifting legal landscape. I'm also the creator of the free interactive digital magazine called Code Word Hex, which focuses more on the practical building strategies, you could say, of these different tools. So today I'll be talking more about some of the business ideas. And then in that particular series, that one focuses on how to actually do something. So how to create a client portal, or how to create a legal app marketplace, or how to create an application that helps people who are disabled veterans to get the answers they need around their eligibility for housing grants, things like that. So then I'm also the creator and editor of the Tuesday Forecast, which we'll talk about today as well, which is a newsletter that goes out once a week that lets people know about some of the upcoming community events. And then I'm also the founder of Command Retreats, which focuses on bringing together high achievers and founders that I connect with. And it's a smaller group, just less than 10 people. And we go to a new location every year and get together and learn from each other and grow our businesses. And I'll talk a little bit about that as well. So let's get into today's topic a little bit more. So I'm just going to go back to this slide for a little bit, and we'll kind of dip in and out of different tabs and things. So the reason I wanted to talk about this is when I was coming up with things like Command Academy and things like the newsletter and this show and Code Word Hex, for example, they all came at different stages. They didn't all come at one time, even the fellowship, for example. So I thought it might be useful to talk about why each one exists and how they came to be and why they're there and what they're operating and what they're trying to do. And I think that that's going to be a helpful conversation for people who are starting their businesses or in this kind of development stage and feeling, oh, I don't have this yet, or I don't have that yet, or I need to it can feel like a barrier to starting something if you feel like you have so much to do that you don't know where to start. And I think the key message obviously here is going to be to start and to not, there's I don't remember where I heard this, but it's just this idea around don't solve for problems that you don't have yet. And I think that that's kind of a hard thing for people, especially who are coming from the legal space, to kind of reckon with, which is this idea that it feels like you're playing very fast and loose, like you don't know what's coming. And so as people who are generally very risk adverse, and you're kind of more someone who's always thinking about liability and you're always thinking about risk, it can be hard to take a risk like that where you're launching into something where you don't feel like all of the pieces are in front of you on the table for you to look at in order to make decisions about. So it can feel very uncomfortable to go through this type of process. So I think what I would say is when I first started Hernandez Law, which was my law practice, which I still technically have, it's just I don't really take on legal clients anymore because I focus more on legal technology and innovation and app building and things like that. So, and also especially around education. Well, when I was first building that particular business, a lot of the ideas that I have that are around like things like core community and core this and core that and the name, things like that did come from that time and around a little bit of traditional business planning in a way. But I actually didn't take that all the way through. And there was a lot of time spent on planning for something that some of those things turned out and some of them didn't. And this isn't to actually say that you should never have a business plan or anything like that. I think that there's certain key points where it's useful to sit down and plan things out but I think also there's value in starting certain things and building along the way the pieces that, become necessary at different points so that you can spend your energy fully in different areas and then build the pieces around your core. So in that particular case, it was helpful at the start to understand a couple of different checklist things and things that I need to kind of think about, like how was I going to make money? How much was I going to charge? How many clients would I need to have in order to make this much money in the year? And how to get an EIN, whether I should be a sole proprietor or, have a PC, for example, different things like that. So those different types of decisions, there are still decisions that you need to make. I think it's around more how the conversation around how I developed all the different pieces of what I have now is more useful. So if we move away from that particular time of Hernandez Law, which as I said, is really I wasn't trying to build it all the way up at the time. I just knew that I needed to continue to practice while I was getting my master's degree. So it wasn't going to be useful for me to go into straight into like a firm, for example. But when I was considering how I was going to grow Hernandez Academy, I think that's really where there's a lot of gold. So Hernandez Combine LLC stands for where knowledge meets application and implementation. And I started the LLC after I finished my master's degree. So I had already graduated from law school. I already took the bar. I was already a licensed attorney. I finished my master's degree. And at that point, I was the most educated I'd ever been, but it was really hard for me to get a job. And this is why I think it's so important for everyone to kind of think about these different topics around having their own side hustle or business or way of generating money without having to have someone sort of give you a job in a way. So I want you to learn how to create your own job. And then learning how to scale that from there. So if we go into this kind of idea around creating your own job, there's different pieces that people think we need. And then there's things that are essential along the way, and we can build it lean, where we build those pieces as they become necessary or at last viable opportunity or moment, you could say. So with that, with Cormay & Kamai LLC, the reason why I started it was I had a really good idea, which was around, I was listening to a lot of different personal development audiobooks at the time. So I was listening to Jensen Chero, and I was listening to things like Atomic Habits. And, I just kind of went through like so many different books at the time, the 4 Agreements and the 5th Agreement, and We Should All Be Millionaires, and like all these different books. So I was thinking it would be useful for all of these to be into kind of consolidated into a single workbook or system of some kind that takes all of the different principles, because every book has things like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the 6 Habits of High Performers, the 5 Agreements, the 7 the 7 principles that make marriage work. There's all these different things, like the 7 habits of millionaires. All of these different principles are amazing, but it can feel overwhelming and confusing to try to figure out, as you read one book to the next, how to take all of those different pieces of advice, seeing the pieces that cross over with each other, and then putting those into a particular system, for example. I'm just going to pause here for 1 second and have a drink. Let's see. Okay, so I was just saying that it could be hard when you're going through all of these different books and different recommendations and how to fit those pieces together into what your real life looks like. But I ended up developing a system called the Hackett model, which makes it to where you're able to systematically go through the different recommendations from all of these, I think it's 232 different books, and put these different principles into practice into your daily calendar. So it kind of, depending on your sort of big ideas and goals, and then breaking those down into your atomic habits and putting them onto your schedule so you can accomplish your goals. And that system has really changed my life in the way that I've been able to implement that. So I started with that idea first, and that kind of made it to where within those couple of 2-3 months or so, I was able to fully fill out that whole, system, create that whole system. And then when I was going through that time, I actually just sort of ran out of money from a saving standpoint and had to just stop, working on it and just get a job so that I could have cash flow. That's one of the pieces of advice I'm going to offer here as well, which is that I think it's Jay Leno who says that he, in Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, he's having a chat with Jerry Seinfeld and the host of the show. And he says that he never spent the money from the Tonight Show, I think it is, with Jay Leno. He always like banked that money, never lived off of it. And he had always had 2 different ways of making money. One that was kind of paying the bills, and another one that was just saving. And that's something that I was never really good at, but I think is really sound advice. So for him, he was able to actually live off of his improv stuff and all of the kind of gigs that he was working on that angle. And then all of the money he made from the show, he never spent. And so in my case, at that time, this is, sort of like September, October, November timeframe of 2021, I wasn't in that place. So I needed to find a job, which actually worked out because it led to my first job in legal technology, which was that time that I spent with Vala. So around this idea of when the business comes before the plan, build a model around it, it was during the time that I was in my time at Vala that I started thinking about the opportunity that there could be for a scalable source of income for myself, as well as a means for other people to be certified in Gavel, for example, with the Gavel certification course idea. So in my case, these always come with this like different business opportunities and business ideas that come before I had the plan really for them. And just that start, that hint of that initial idea, and where to go from there. So with that particular time frame, I already had known Dorna for a while. And this is also a key point around networking early, networking kind of before you need anything from each other, and just making friends in the industry that you can later call upon to talk about different opportunities as well. So with that particular relationship in place, and what I was doing with Vala at the time was I was creating a workshop for people who were in need of understanding what their resources were if they were feeling like they were being discriminated against at work, and particularly in the UK. So I needed to develop this, I wanted to develop this workshop resource guide that made it to where people who were going to be attending the workshop could access this resource guide. And as they kind of went through the different questions at the output document, things would show or hide depending on their answers. So this is actually a perfect scenario for something like Gavel, because Gavel is one of the main four great features, in my opinion, of Gavel, besides everything, but is specifically the powerful logic and conditional logic features that you can have attached using the word add-in. So you don't have to code from scratch. You can use this no-code tagger, which will understand what you're trying to do. And you just tell it, I want you to show this if that, show this paragraph when this condition is met, for example. So it was during that time that I kind of picked that tool back up after a couple of years, because I hadn't really used the tool since 2020 when I first heard about it. That I saw an opportunity for there to be some structure around how people learn about the tool, because at the time you kind of had the tool and the learning center, which is very robust and useful, but I just felt like there was a gap in the market, not only around systematic or like more of a sort of a structured way of learning the tool, but also around giving out badges and certifications for the tool, saying that I am certified at this level for this tool. So I saw that as an opportunity for the company to actually do it. So I actually pitched them the idea of saying, hey, you should do this, and maybe I'll create it for you and we can share in the revenue or something. So that was the idea. And so that idea was the thing that came first. And then we kind of talked about having it to where I had about 6 months to try to develop the idea. So when I was first going into developing that idea, I had a key conversation that really helped with this idea of the business, and that business coming in, and you build your model and the infrastructure around it. So when I was first coming up with the idea for the Gavel certification courses, I had already been reading a book called The Ultimate Course Formula. And that book kind of recommends that you have a structured interview or conversation with potential users of your course, people who would maybe be students of your course, and you ask them Iman's 8 golden questions. And it was during a conversation of one of these interviews that I had, because I had about 3 or 4 with different people, because I thought that maybe coaches would want to get into this tool as well. I just saw a lot of application in the kind of personal consultant coaching space as well, because they come with a lot of things like worksheets and asking a lot of questions that have a user input. And I still think that that's a really untapped area for this particular tools market. But that aside, that's what I kind of thought would be a good starting point to just kind of have a conversation with people around what might be useful in this type of course and things like that. I was talking to someone who is a intuitive movement coach, and she was just kind of starting out in her business as well. And her questions, or when she was answering the different questions, when I was saying, what would you want a course like this to have? Because I was talking more about sort of no code for people in this space, and not necessarily Gavel would be the core, but just kind of what else would you want to learn about? And she was saying, so she was basically saying that she wanted to learn about the difference between different types of platforms, such as Wix, and which one should I, which website creator should I use? Which type of newsletter platform should I use? Why is MailChimp or some other, Sendinblue or other type of mailing newsletter kind of system better than another? Which one should I use? So I thought this was a very interesting question, because she didn't have any clients yet, and she didn't really have any anyone to send a newsletter to, and that's okay too. We'll kind of get to that bit. But the point was, it's like there were a lot of questions around, what should I use for my website? What should I use for my blog? What should I use for my newsletter? What should I use for this and that? And I think the first question really should have been a slightly different question, because these are all a means to an end and not necessarily the business in and of themselves. And you could actually maybe have a successful business without some of these pieces. So for me, when I was talking with her, I just kept thinking, do you need a blog right now? Maybe yes, maybe no. But the question shouldn't be like, which tool should I use in order to create a blog? The question really should be, how do I let people know that I exist? Which could be a free Instagram account. How do I put myself or place myself in a position where people can find me, or I can tell them that I exist? And in that space, let them know what it is I do and what I'm offering them and how I can help them. And then another piece would be for them to engage with me at a price level that can match their interest level. So for example, providing some type of content or value that's an exchange that allows me to help them trust me in the realm that I'm trying to interact with them. And then a way for them to pay me if they'd like to work with me. So I think that those were the couple of really key first questions that needed to be asked, rather than which software do I need to use for this or that thing that you may or may not need right now. So for her, I think the biggest thing was, a place for people to go. Let's say she, in her example, she was getting a lot of her leads from Instagram. So she needed a place for people to go from Instagram to maybe book a time with her, if that was the next stage, or to learn more about what she offered, which could be a single page website with maybe one link off to her Calendly page. She needed, the content she could actually produce could just be something that lives on Instagram through video, or that gets linked off in her bio or whatever else. And so there's just a couple of different pieces where I just felt like it wasn't necessarily the right question at that stage. But because she was in the initial stages, it was a conversation that we were having, because it feels like everyone has those different things. So with her, that conversation was really impactful for me about what type of content I should be offering people, which is not only around the technical pieces of how to build something, but also how to make decisions around different software, understanding what should be within your tech stack at which stage of your career, or like your startup life or your business life, and then just some pieces around business and mindset themselves. So as you'll see, as we talk about the different pieces that I've built for my own company, why I've made those decisions along the way. But as I mentioned, the questions we should be asking in the beginning are, how can I position myself to have something that puts me inside of the place where people who I want to work with live? So a way to meet my audience. So how can I position myself within my audience? So with that being said, I think it depends on who your market is. So that could be, especially for a lot of people who are coaches, that can be Instagram, that could be TikTok, that could be some other platform that where people are already going, that is free to you. Or maybe you could say, if you wanted to start doing ads or whatever, something that you can, put yourself in front of that group, rather than trying to draw people off of those platforms that they're already going and onto your site. So having that place where they already live, being that initial position, as I said, which could be free to you, or you can have a business account. So you need a place where you can position yourself within the place that everyone lives. And that goes around just, how do I let people know that I exist? And how do I let people know what I'm doing? So that's that second piece. So that's the first one is, how do I let people know that I exist? By meeting them where they are. So that can come with things. So you kind of build around that. So you can say that comes with like keyword research, that comes with YouTube videos, that comes with Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or whatever, Snapchat, but whatever place, wherever those people are, Reddit, comedy clubs, depends on whatever, for me, coming to Berlin in order to meet people who I want to talk to, not necessarily for them to be my clients, but for them to be people within my network and space. So positioning yourself either physically or digitally in a place where the people that you want to have know about you already are going. And then, so that takes a little bit of research to know and find where those are, but finding that place to start is a good starting point. The other question, like I said, is not necessarily going to be, which platform do I use for my blog or my newsletter? But the next one should be, how do I let people know what I'm doing and what services I offer? So that could be through content within that site, or that can be a one-page, very simple landing page that people can go to. So a lot of people use a link tree, for example. So this is for people who, obviously, like I said, even for me now, it's still pretty lean. But the idea is, it doesn't have to be this complicated startup process. You just need a means for people to know that you exist, and then to take them off of wherever they found you into your own space, where you can say, hey, like in a conversation, in a way where you're saying, this is who I am, this is what I do. And then there's a piece of, and you can trust me with this matter or whatever, because of maybe you use social proof, which is the idea that you use testimonials from past clients or students or whatever. And you can also, that's where things like content comes in, where you're saying, here is a white paper about whatever topic, or this is a blog piece. And so that's where you can have the blog piece, or this is a workshop that's coming up that I'm going to be doing live about this particular topic. So you're demonstrating authority in that topic. And so those can serve as the pieces that build a basis of trust and a relationship between you and your customers or your client base. So I think that's a good second piece. So we have the fact that you are positioned within your market so that you can plop yourself down digitally or physically in this space, or both, that your clients and the people that you want to collaborate with live. The second piece is to let them know what you do, let them know you exist, let them know what you do, what services you offer. And then I'm just going to take a quick note. So yeah, so the number one part would be around that. Let people know you exist, what services you offer and what you do, a way to build trust within that space and within your audience. And that comes in with those pieces of, those content pieces of blogs and videos and workshops and things like that. Once you have those pieces in place, I think you also need a way for them to book a time with you or contact you. So let's say you are a coach. So sometimes the coaches will generally do things either by a group or by a one-to-one. So they need to have a way of knowing when the next session is for a group session, for example, how much it costs. And then also if you wanted them as the highest sort of rate or tier that you're offering to be a one-to-one, how they can book a time with you for a one-to-one. So you need some kind of booking platform. So I really like Calendly, because that will connect. If you just have a free plan, that's really, really good, and it will last you for a long time without having to upgrade. But there's a couple of key features of the paid plans for Calendly that I do think are worth the price, which are things like the ability to add Stripe payments onto there, as I think there's also PayPal, as well as the way to have your contacts automatically feed into your customer relationship management software, as well as your, let's say, newsletter, email manager. That could be something like a HubSpot or a MailChimp. So those are a couple of things, as well as the ability to kind of have like multiple different types, as well as if you wanted to have team members on there as well. But the point being that you just need a way to have your initial sort of processing of clients automated, and Calendly is one really, really good way to do that. And so a way to book a time with you or contact you. So maybe you need an email address as well. And we're keeping it pretty lean and basic. And so you need sort of the purpose of a website, instead of it just to be like, I need a website. I think we should always go back to what is the purpose of the thing that I'm trying to do, rather than all of the things I think I need. So if we're trying to let people know that we exist, it's useful to place ourselves in their environment. And if we want to be able to then pull them out of that sort of muddled sort of environment where there's a lot of different things into our environment that we control, then a useful thing is a website or a landing page of some kind where the person can read about our services, which could be something as simple as a link tree, or it can be something as simple as a single page on a free website, builder, such as a Softer, a Wix, or anything else. And then a way to build that trust within that community. So letting people know that you're an authority in that, as well as providing any kind of social proof. So in that piece, we have that social proof being, like I've mentioned, the ability to kind of demonstrate that you've kind of either done it with other people or used your, let's say, coaching services, for example, or your legal services with other people, and then their kind of reviews of that. And then demonstrating your authority over the topic, which would be, like if you're a psychologist or if you're a lawyer, kind of creating content that shows that you know what you're talking about in that area so that people can trust you. And then creating any type of webinar funnels or other kind of lead funnels to make it to where you're able to move them through your particular sales process. So then we need a way for them to book with you. And as I mentioned, so that can be a Calendly, for example, and a way for them to contact you either through your phone number and email. And then, and I know that these sound basic, but the point here is around what is the purpose of the thing that we're trying to do, and that will guide you. The purpose of having a website is to give people a way to book a time with you, to learn about your services, to build trust. Those are the reasons why people have a website. It's not because you're a business now and you need 5 different things, a blog, a website, a newsletter, and all of that. So starting with the intention and the purpose, I think, is more important than the actual end thing that you use, because you can always use many different means to do that. And then the other one, like I mentioned, is a way for them to pay. So at some point, at some stage, a business is going to need to get paid in some way. So it depends on who's paying you. Obviously, it's not always going to be the client that pays you. Maybe you're getting payments through being an affiliate. Maybe you're getting paid through being an ambassador of some kind. Maybe you're getting paid through the actual purchase of a product, but not for your time. So it just depends on what that model looks like. So that's just to say, so now we have these different pieces along the way that have built up through the purpose behind them, which is the purpose is to let people find you. The purpose is to let people learn about your services, to demonstrate authority, to earn trust, to find a way for them to connect with you, either virtually or in person, and a way for them to exchange value with you through a payment. So all of these different pieces come together into what becomes your business model. And it all kind of originates from your initial idea and your skill and the things that, make you who you are, and how you can position your excellence in the market. So the other piece is what I was going to talk about with the desired lifestyle when building a business. So I think about this piece all the time because because I work a lot with students or people who are law students, for example, or in university. They're in a position where they're trying to make a lot of really important decisions about their lives. So they're making decisions about, is it worthwhile for me to take the bar exam, or should I wait until after I get a master's degree and then take it afterwards? Should I even go to law school if I'm an undergrad and trying to figure out what I want to do next? Should I go straight into the legal market because I want to get into technology? So all these types of questions. And even before people go into law school, if they're maybe switching careers or whatever else. And what I always like to tell people when I'm mentoring them, so I would like to tell people that when you're considering what you want to do in your life, when you're considering what career you want to go into, what kind of schooling you want to go into, what kind of training you want to get into, I always talk about how you should think about what your lifestyle, you should always think about what lifestyle you want to have when you're making that decision. And what I mean by that is, what do you want your day-to-day life to look like? And then build your businesses and your career choices around that core. So for me, for example, I love to travel. So I need a job that allows me to travel whenever I want to. I have to be 100% remote because it's really part of who I am as a person to love to travel. So I need to be able to just take my computer, take my phone, take my camera, and just go somewhere. And that's it. And that's my mobile office. And that's the way that I've been able to set things up now. And so a lot of my decisions that I've made about my business have come around really being true to the lifestyle that I want to have, which is that I can just literally decide a week before I leave that I want to go to Berlin next week. That's the kind of lifestyle I want to have. So when I get opportunities that come to me, I build the model around this idea that I'm not going to accept anything that would limit my ability to do this thing that I want my life to look like. Because we don't know how long we have on this earth. So I'd rather be living exactly the lifestyle that I want to have now, rather than saying I'll work for 20 years and then I'll be able to travel after that. I want to live right now as I am, which is that I'm able to pick up and go if I want to. So that's a big piece of my personal decision around that. And that's not to say that you don't have to have certain periods where you need to, really kind of focus and do certain things in place. So, but I'm just at a different stage now. So when I got out of school, and even when I was in school, I did education abroad programs that allowed me to travel and live in New Zealand. I got to live in England, which completely changed my life for my master's degree. So even within that, I was able to travel and find opportunities to live the lifestyle that I have now, that I want to have. But I think it's not really the question. These aren't really the questions that a lot of people ask when they first start out. They don't really ask, what kind of lifestyle do I want to have? What's the lifestyle of a lawyer? What's the lifestyle of a doctor? What does the day-to-day life of someone who's a pilot look like, or a comedian, or whatever other thing they want to do? They're asking maybe things like, how much money does it make? What kind of status might I have in society? And obviously these are generalizations, but I think I've never really heard people talking about starting from the idea of what kind of life, a day-to-day lifestyle do I want to have, which I think is the most important question. I think a good illustration of this would be, I had a friend who is a saxophone player, and he invited us, me and my friend, to kind of go out to see some live music. And he's like, well, I'll be there and start doing the jam at 11 p.m. that is not a lifestyle that I could have. I like to wake up at 5:30 in the morning and have my day start and be outside all day and then sleep at like 9:30 at night. But for him, he starts his day at 10:30 p.m. or 11 p.m. and goes until 3 or 4 in the morning. Similar with a comedian who does night gigs, who doesn't start work till 6 or 7 p.m. and then goes until 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. So you have to kind of consider those pieces as well and build the business and the life that you want around the lifestyle that you want to have. I think that's the biggest thing that I wish I understood when I was a little bit younger, is that how your daily life looks is going to be the most important thing for your overall mental health and your physical health and your financial health, because you're going to be happier as a person if you're living this lifestyle that you really want to have. So as I mentioned for myself, the ability to pick up and go whenever I want to was a really important piece of the lifestyle that I wanted to have when I was building my business. The other piece was really around scalability, and it sounds a little bit strange, but the ability to kind of walk away is also really important to me, because I really want to have the ability to be a mom. So I want to create things that make it to where I'm not indispensable. I want to be able to build things that allow me to do a couple of key things, but for the rest of the time, I'm able to be a mom. I'm not a mom yet, but I have that desire, and I want to build my business with that lifestyle choice and desire in mind, that I want to be able to build things that will generate money without me having to do anything extra, to make those products really good and really valuable for people, that allows it to spread on its own and scale on its own, as well as with like a little bit of promptings from me along the way, but something that I can step back from, and it doesn't have to be a full-time engagement of my time in order to generate revenue. So with that being said, one of the pieces of this puzzle that I chose to not focus on as much, although I'm having a meeting today with someone about maybe helping with their project, is that sort of automation by the hour piece, because it made it to where, especially too, when I was practicing law too, anything that's kind of connecting me to an hourly billing structure is hard for me to kind of, grapple with, because it forces me to not be thinking or generating or sort of creating different ideas, because those things, aren't necessarily, they're things that will propel things further, but they're not necessarily things I'll get paid for right now. But in order to spend the time or put the hours in order to get the return on the money. So I wanted to kind of break that one-to-one connection between an hourly billing structure and my time. So I wanted to be able to disconnect from the one-to-one of a 1 unit of my time equals 1 unit of currency. So in order to make it to where, instead of making it to where I have to always be involved at each point, I can be involved in pockets and then allow that to grow on its own and to scale on its own to many different people. So that's the kind of business I wanted to have. And that's what I've tried to create, even though there are still aspects of my, my business that are hourly in nature. There are also bits of my practice and my business that are scalable without me. I do the initial work and the maintenance, but otherwise it doesn't require further effort from me or further time from me, so that I can scale other pieces of my business as well. So that's when you kind of are able to start building these pieces around the lifestyle that you want to have. In my case, that is to be able to travel whenever I want to, and also to be a mom when that time comes. So with that being said, I know we only have a few minutes left, but in this kind of last couple wrap-up minutes, I wanted to talk a little bit about this show, as well as like the lightning talks for legal innovators, and just sort of a couple of different pieces along the way around technology too. So the reason why I have this show, as well as Code Word Hex, both of them are because of a recognition that Megan and I built something with the Gavel certification courses. We built something and we didn't have, we didn't really have an audience yet. And that's something that, I could have built ahead of time. And if I planned a little bit more that way, but I allowed it to be a little bit more intuitive in nature, in that I allowed it to present itself that this needs to happen now. This is the part that needs to have this piece now. This is the purpose and need for this type of thing. So for me, I needed a way for people I needed a way to demonstrate authority, and I needed a way to create a relationship with the people who may become students with us. I needed a way to practice how I present and how I teach other people. I needed a way to stimulate ideas through the habit of creating content every week. I needed a way to practice building with the tools that I'm trying to teach so that I can become more and more and more proficient, as well as demonstrate that proficiency to other people. So Code Word Hex is partially a way for me to demonstrate that I know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about these different tools, that I have a unique perspective on the tool, and I'm able to teach someone else and have the authority to certify these different people. With the Wednesday build is partially that as well. And I recognize the need for more of a regular live element, which is around the idea of a webinar funnel, and the ability to have people say, on this day at this time, I'm going to be speaking to you if you'd like to join me. So that's the piece of the Code Word Hex and the Wednesday build, and why those pieces came when they did. The same thing with the Law Students for Legal Tech, Law Students in Legal Tech Access to Justice Fellowship, with the recognition that my approach to reaching out to different law schools made it to where I was always talking to an intermediary. There's always a gatekeeper to the student. And I just wanted to be able to talk to the students directly and take out the middle person and just say, hey, like, this is who I am, this is who we are, let's have a chat and let's talk about how we can use these type of technologies, and you can use these technologies in order to build applications for people who are in need of access to justice. So it's a recognition at different stages that something is not working the way that we want it to, and how can we innovate, or how can we use these pieces like a webinar, like a digital magazine, like a fellowship program, to stimulate and boost our efforts in different areas of the business. So what's interesting too is around the piece of the fellowship, not only were we able to attract a lot of different new people who didn't hear about Gavel before, for example, and talk directly to the students rather than via a gatekeeper, we were also able to get visibility for other people around me becoming a speaker. So that is a new opportunity that came to me that I started to want to build a model around, because I love the idea of being able to meet different people live at different conferences, chat on panels, talk on different, provide different workshops. And that many of those opportunities came from me putting out with Gavel as their ambassador, this program and fellowship for students. So to wrap this up here, I was just going to say that when you're starting out in business, you want to think about what is the purpose and the intent behind what it is I'm trying to do, rather than saying, I need a website, a newsletter, a webinar, a this and that, a blog, and this, whatever else. And so focusing your attention on the software is not going to be as useful as focusing on the purpose. So the purpose of a website is that it's a way for people to get into your environment that you can control, and show them the different calls to action and say, look here, learn more about this particular thing here, enroll in this course, sign up for this workshop, sign up for this group activity. These are the things I offer. This is who has trusted me in the past. These are the results that I deliver. So that's the purpose of a website. And then the purpose of a newsletter is to let people know about upcoming things, to inform them about something else, to provide them with new solutions, to onboard them into some type of educational product or whatever else. And then the purpose of a webinar and the purpose of all these different things is to create a relationship with your customers, provide value at different stages and at different tiers along the way, and having a way for people to book a time with you, The purpose is for them to be able to connect with you one-on-one or as a group. And the purpose of the payment portal is for them to be able to exchange the value that you've set as your kind of rate in order to thank you and compensate you for the value that you've given them. So with that being said, if you have any questions, you can connect with me at Brittany@command.pro. I'm going to skip our announcements, but just to say that I will be back in London as of this time next week, and I will be able to just be at our regular time at 10 a.m. next time, Pacific time. And then I'll just say thank you so much. And the next topic will be harnessing the power of perception, habit persistence, and the payoffs that result. You can connect with me on LinkedIn if you like, and if you'd like to reach out to me via to talk about any of Gavel's programs, you can reach me at Brittany@gavel.io. So thank you so much for those of you that are with me live, and for those of you that are recording, it's nice to see you, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.